Hey folks, I'm Idris, Principal Product Manager at the Microsoft's Azure Data SQL team. Join me in my session today to discover the future of data management and unlock new scenarios that drive your business forward. I'll showcase the first fully SaaS database experience in Microsoft Fabric. Let's get started. So what we're going to cover today is the SQL database and Fabric offering, how simple it is, how autonomous and secure, how optimized for AI. We'll have a bunch of demos and what's coming up next. So let's talk about SQL. You are here already familiar with different flavors of SQL. We have for you, we have SQL, Azure SQL DB, we have SQL Managed Instance, we have SQL Server on-prem, we have new SQL Server 2025 we announced as private preview. And we have been hearing from our customers that creating an Azure SQL instance requires a lot of thought process and can be complex for some. So we wanted to democratize databases so that everyone can create some databases. And that's why we worked on simplifying the SQL database experience as a software as a service in Fabric data and analytics platform that is AI and Copilot ready. So before we talk about why Fabric and why SQL in Fabric, there was research done which says that we work with the Forrester team, and in the next 5 years, there'll be around 1 billion AI apps which will be built, and 87% of the leaders believe AI will give their organization a competitive edge. So what is Microsoft Fabric? Microsoft Fabric is a unified data and analytics platform. It unifies all the required workloads for data science, data engineering kind of projects into one platform. You no longer have to stitch multiple services to build an end-to-end and a solution for your need. It provides under the hood something which is central to Fabric called OneLake to store your data, which is just like having your data in your OneDrive. All the workloads in Fabric provide Copilot experiences and purview for your governance and security for your data, which is located centrally. One most important thing to note about this platform is its billing model. You buy one capacity and you use any workload. So one of the things is we have now introduced, as you can see on the top, is the databases, which is bringing in, and starting off with SQL databases and Fabric. So let's drill a little bit more on that. So the newest workload, which is the Microsoft Fabric databases, streamlines AI application development with simple, autonomous databases that are natively available in Fabric and optimized for AI. So we are starting with SQL. These are the 3 key pillars that we have invested in. The next generation of AI applications require the entire data estate. The SQL databases in Microsoft Fabric is built upon the familiar SQL Server engine, which will enable customers to build insight-driven applications that unite both transactional and analytical data to build intelligent applications and experiences and smarter answers. And this has been optimized for auto optimizations, auto scaling. It can be provisioned in seconds and accelerate innovation with Visual Studio and GitHub integration, Copilot assistance, and CI/CD pipeline support. Data is also automatically replicated to OneLake with mirroring and making it instantly available to Fabric's analytical engines. So let's talk a little bit more about each of these pillars. A reason why we focused on was to, as we talked earlier, we heard feedback that the setting up of Azure SQL databases could be complex. So we wanted to provide a very simple and intuitive editor experience, make it easy to provision. A big part of what we do to focus on this product is to help you focus on building your apps. We know you're going to build a lot of apps, a lot of AI apps in the future. And we want you to do that by helping it as easy and efficient, but also performance and enterprise ready as we can. Now, what better way to do this than show you? We are not going to beat around the bush, and we'll go right into the Fabric website. So here I am going to show you how easy it is to get started. You can see I can go select a new item, and all we have to do is go down to the section and create a new database name. And once that's kicked off, give it a database name, and we'll take care of the provisioning and all the things underneath the hood, like auto scaling, getting you the connection string, setting up your authentication with Entra, and give you a database in seconds. And here we are. Once you're here, you can get started with the getting started data with options like importing sample data. Let's go click on it. Once the sample data is imported, you'll see a developer-friendly, integrated type of experience where you can navigate things like the Object Explorer, see your different schemas. You can search in here, and you can also save your queries as well as take advantage of data previews, where you can preview the data without writing any query. But hey, well, let's say you want to get right into a quick query using our query editor. It's so impressive that you just like you would do with any other SQL database. So one added thing which we have added here is the support for Copilot. And here I'm using comments to basically ask Copilot, what is it I want the SQL query code to be generated? And here it is. It generated the code for me. It can also do autocomplete too, and it'll make a guess at what I'm trying to do. So it's pretty impressive. Also, it can explain queries with AI and fix errors. So if you're running into errors with the queries, this feature would be super, super helpful. Now, let's just talk a little bit about, here I'm going to show you is, sorry, we already covered this, didn't we? All right. So here we have a sidecar Copilot, which you can also use. Which we already talked about. Here we're going to go to the settings for the databases. So you can see you can change the sensitivity labels. You can see whether it's endorsed by your organization. Here's a connection string for your app developers right here. You can pick it up and you can put it into your application. These are the restore points for when it was earliest restored and where it was latest restored, and any kind of Copilot settings for completions as well. So one of the thing is, we like to encourage you all to use the feedback button and provide us your feedback. We're always listening and learning from our users. Now, the other thing which we are seeing here is integrations with like pipelines and templates, or opening your tool in your choice like Visual Studio Code or SSMS. You may want to create an API and as well, and there's also performance dashboards. We'll take a look at that. Let's go create an API that you want to interact with the data we just created. It's super simple with SQL database and Fabric. You give it a name and select the data which you want it to be exposed from that API and load it in. What you're going to see now is a graph SQL playground where you can write graph SQL queries and see how they work. You can also navigate your mutations if you like, and if you're lazy like me, I'm using Copilot again and generate queries. So I'm here asking for a GraphQL query, and when I'm happy with it, again, this is a multi-turn thing, so I can then bring it back to the editor and make sure I'm happy with the results. Here's the part I loved. You can pick your language of your choice. In this case, I'm picking Python, and able to I'm going to go to VS Code, and you can now just run it. I have to just authenticate, so I'm going away from the screen, but it comes back. It just works. Now I have a code sample in Python where I'm connecting and running the queries that I've tested. I'm ready to use my application. So we also have this available for Node, and because we have REST API support, if you want to build PowerShell scripts or other scripts, you can go to manage a database using weak code, and you can do that as well. And since we are in VS Code, might as well show off some SQL Server extensions that we have built here, and the SQL database products. You can manage a database there as well. This is a glimpse at the VS Code and how, again, this where you would want to be as a developer. If this is where you live in, great, you have the database, and now you can get into developing the way you like it. One other thing that we were doing with Fabric All Up is the kind of unification of all the data into OneLake, where you'll have one copy of your source data that is being replicated in your real time. So replication to OneLake was one of the key foundational things we built in as part of this capability. And this is where you get your transactional and analytical applications together, which we call it Translytical apps, which you can build it right from SQL databases in Fabric, which, by the way, SQL database in Fabric is actually a SQL database. You have your MDF, your LDF, and all the good stuff under the hood. But in addition, we also have mirroring or replication on by default to OneLake, which means that near real time your data is landing in OneLake, which helps you unify your operational analytics works in one data analytics platform. Now, what you'll see here is you'll see two things. One is a SQL analytics endpoint, which is generated for every lakehouse and exposes those delta tables from those lakehouse as SQL tables that can be queried using T-SQL language. And every delta table from a lakehouse is represented as one table in delta format. And you'll see this in the application. You'll be able to connect to both of these. And the semantic model is also created by default for you to create Power BI reports as well. Let's see this in action a little bit. So here I am, I'm created my database right here. I'm going to go to the replication tab and look at all the data which we have created as a table that's already available. Now, remember, this is the data which is all replicated into OneLake. So I'm going to go into the editor on top and switch to the SQL Analytics endpoint. In this scenario, I'm looking at the read-only data which is replicated of your underlying SQL database, which is pretty cool. We can also bring in data from your lakehouse and your warehouse, and you can do some really cool stuff. Like you can now do cross-querying of your Contoso database in this scenario, your operation database, your warehouse data, which is read-only, your lakehouse, which could be coming in from various other streams, and you could do a joint query. Like in this case, we have a table called posts. The post types are a categorical table in data warehouse, and you have links related to that in lakehouse. You can all combine together, and you can do your analytical queries while you have your operational data at the same time. So this is pretty cool. Let's talk about the application life cycle management. So essentially, every database which you have available in SQL DB and Fabric is available in source control. The source control integration in Fabric, it's a web interface which has ability to integrate with GitHub and Azure DevOps. You can commit your database objects to Git repository, can develop against a live database, track object changes. You can update database from code in Git repository. You can do database code editing in developer tooling. You can have SQL project support in VS Code and Visual Studio, as well as SQL projects validates object references. It catches any syntax specifically related to SQL databases in Fabric. Also, you have a single package command line tool, which provides the ability to database import and export with portable backpack format. You can do iterative deployments in your choice of your CI/CD environments as well. About SQL databases, the capacity model, the way it works, the Microsoft Fabric has unified your data, a product of all your different workloads into one. So you have your analytical workloads, you have your data workloads. That's why it's a data platform. And basically, there are the two variables which with how your bill is determined, are the amount of compute you provision on compute and the storage. And there's a shared pool of capacity that powers all the capabilities of compute. And the storage is a single place to store all the data. And the compute is based on a purchase pay-as-you-go resource, and the storage is also the same as purchase as pay-you-go resource. And there are different capacities and levels which you purchase in Fabric, and that's what determines your capabilities for how the capacity model is built. Let's talk a little bit about the third pillar, the being autonomous and secure. Now, simplifying database administration with very intuitive setup and autonomous management was something which we worked on. And the challenge was making the right choices, and managing databases is pretty complex. So we want folks to spend less time planning for spiky workloads with serverless, auto-scale, compute, and storage, and also have capabilities like auto-managing the high availability or disaster recovery for hands-free backups and high availability as well. Fabric supports zone redundant availability, zone where available. With zone redundant availability, resources automatically replicate without the need for setup or configuration. So you can get fast and consistent app performance with resource optimization and intelligent auto indexing. So it really helps you bring SQL database and Fabric to get you the best security, availability, and performance configs. From a security perspective, as you all know, security has been Microsoft's top priority, and coming to Fabric, we wanted to make sure data and applications are secured by default. SQL Database and Fabric is offering a comprehensive portfolio of capabilities across every area of security. For example, we are enforcing Microsoft Entra authentication across the board to guarantee passwordless authentication and allow users to centrally manage their identities. Auditing will also be enabled by default to automatically collect critical security events like login attempts and security changes. Of course, it'll also be customizable to help meet your exact financial requirements. Auditing is coming soon in the next 6 months. Finally, we are integrating with Microsoft Purview as well to deliver on our vision of central governance, similar to other Fabric items. Databases can be labeled also according to their sensitivity labels, while the service automatically applies centrally managed product protection services and policies. So with autonomous, you can have auto HA with zone redundancy, auto scaling, compute and storage. All databases are automatically configured with HA and zone redundancy. We can leverage we're leveraging our serverless and fleet manager technologies that can automatically scale compute and storage to respond to the incoming user workload and demands, providing elasticity without monitoring or user actions needed. Now, data is automatically replicated to OneLake with the system fully managed mirroring. We saw that earlier as well. The database is also auto-optimized using the latest intelligent query processing enhancements like automatic plan correction that detects query plan regressions and automatically mitigates them by reverting to an earlier plan. Any missing indexes are also automatically detected and created to optimize your workloads. Backups are fully managed by the system, allowing you to restore the database at any point to recover for any system or user errors. Finally, you can be assured that your database is secured with the latest patches, as a service automatically applies them on time and without affecting the compatibility for your application. Since the database is now autonomous, we're also introducing a modern performance dashboard experience that allows you to go easily from insights to action. Let's see this in action. So let's go directly into the demo here. What you can see, let's take a look at this CPU consumption across my queries in the performance dashboard. I can see some red dots in the performance dashboards, right? Let's click in to see what's happening. The query on top is consuming the most CPU. Let's see what's behind that. And I can see the details in the page like execution history and compare performance, average and maximum durations, and the T-SQL on that as well. As you can see, this is we're showing only the CPU consumption today, but there are other cool stuff like you can see blocked queries. We can go back and see during the last 24 hours and see what's performing from a timeline perspective. But you can show things like user connections, requests per seconds, allocated size, and of course, a list of automatic indexes that our system has created. You can use this dashboard with minimal knowledge of SQL. It'll help you quickly detect performance bottlenecks with your databases and solve them on your own. Now let's move on to something even more cooler. Optimize for AI. This is the third pillar of how we have focused on and provided the SQL database and Fabric capabilities in Fabric. So there are 4 areas here. We have built this for AI apps developers, vector and RAG support. RAG is essentially retrieval augment generation. It's a technique in AI that combines information retrieval with text generation. We retrieve the most semantically relevant data from a database and use it to ground LLMs for specific scenarios. We also use Azure OpenAI to generate embeddings that are stored as vectors. We store the vectors and the data together for consistency and search for the most relevant semantic data. Structured queries, it allows you to query your structured data as well as advantage of rich metadata and query optimization. And also it's integrated with popular frameworks like LangChain and Semantic Codon. Now, SQL database and Fabric also works with data across Fabric experiences like notebooks, data pipelines, data flows, Power BI, and so on. Let's see this in action. So here I'm in Fabric, I can navigate to my lakehouse and you can see there's a lot of product documentation with PDFs for hybrid and electric vehicles and their parts. These are pretty text-heavy PDFs with lots of written information. So let's see how we can bring this thing and chunk it and bring it into SQL DB and Fabric. So we're going to use an Azure OpenAI services and SQL database in Fabric to build a chat experience for asking questions on this data. First, we need to extract and chunk the data, and we can do that with Azure Document Intelligence. We can reference the PDFs in the lakehouse. Then we can use a function begin analyzed document, which we saw a little bit earlier. And then we extract the text from the PDF and break into chunks. We clean it up and create a data frame or a table with columns like file name, chunk ID, and text, which you can see that in this query. Now you can see that the code has gone through all the PDF, extracted the text, and generated the chunks with unique IDs. Now next, we're going to need to generate embeddings, which are numerical representation of text segments. We'll use OpenAI to help us do this. You can see for every file and chunk, we have a vector representation. And this is really, really important because now we can take this representation of vectors data and now move it into SQL databases and Fabric. So now that we have this, now that we have the embeddings, we can now use the native vector type support in Fabric, SQL database in Fabric to store the vectors directly in the database. Right. Here we have a simple program that will essentially generate the embeddings for a user search query. We can use the built-in vector index, vector distance functions to find the most similar chunks of text by comparing to the user query embedding. And here's an example where we can search for how to replace an oil filter. For example, hey, and this what it does, it finds the most similar segments which are returned based on all the chunkings and embeddings which we have done and stored in SQL DB and Fabric using the vector search SQL function. We can further enhance this by leveraging LLMs to make it more conversational with completions. Let's look at how much code it takes to create a conversational experience. This is the API keys with OpenAI. We just given some functions you use. This is basically the code and your building blocks. So let's see, here we have a user ask how to replace the oil filter on a CA hybrid utility truck, and they ask about the minimum tire load ratings and tire pressure for the CA3 model. The AI is able to segment out the request and gives two sections of results, one with details for oil filter replacement and one with load ratings and tire pressures based on the wheel diameters of the CA3. So as you can see now, it's bringing in all this data from all these different PDFs. It was chunked. It was using the vector capabilities, bringing in the value of the rack patterns and bringing it all together. So you are able to quickly develop an AI app on SQL databases and Fabric as well. I know this is a lot of information, and it's a lot of demos and capabilities, but we also let us tell you what's coming next. We have in the next 6 months, we have a ton of capabilities coming up. We have a shortcut support for SQL data, for SQL DB in Fabric, private links, support for business continuity, disaster recovery, auditing, customer managed keys, event stream AI skills support, more capabilities for the support for AI app development, native notebook support, Terraform, and a ton more stuff. So we plugged in. It's super exciting. There's a lot of capabilities here. You're probably asking, how do I get all this information? And how can I get started? There are quite a lot of resources. There's documentation. Click on this capability where you can do a Fabric trial, and you can sign up for a Fabric trial for 60 days. We have a lot of Learn modules. We have episodes from our Data Exposed. Also, please, as I said earlier, provide us a feedback, and we are listening for your ideas and any product enhancements or capabilities you would like. We also have Demand Learning series. And please do join us at the FabCon Las Vegas in March 2025 and learn more about it. There are actually pre-con tutorials and a lot of exciting sessions. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this session. Have a great day and a great evening. Bye.